The story of the sword begins in the dawn of history, when humanity first sought to surpass stone. The need was simple but profound, a sharper, tougher cutting tool that could be resharpened rather than discarded. Copper and meteoritic iron provided the material, and the method was equally direct, hammering the metal cold into thin shapes. From this came the first metal blades, short, soft daggers, more symbols of prestige than practical weapons. They glittered where stone dulled, a triumph of innovation. Yet their triumph revealed a flaw. Hammered edges dulled quickly, blades bent under pressure, and the very hammering that shaped them left them brittle. The dream of a longer, stronger weapon found itself checked. Hammered metal had given humanity a glimpse of the sword, but not yet the sword itself. The search for durability and length brought the discovery of bronze copper alloyed with tin, cast in stone or clay molds. This alloy was harder and more resilient, and the method of casting gave smiths new control over shape. Now blades could be poured whole with integral hilts, leaf-shaped and symmetrical. These were the first true bronze swords gleaming in the hands of warriors, far surpassing stone or hammered copper. Yet bronze too carried its limits. Long blades snapped where they thinned, brittle at hilts or edges. Armor blunted their effectiveness, and the casting process left flaws that could not be seen until they broke in battle. The bronze sword was powerful, but its very brittleness pointed the way forward. Longer blades demanded stronger forms, and ultimately a tougher metal than bronze could ever be. Smiths stretched bronze to its limits, casting longer swords with improved hilt constructions. Flanges, riveted tangs, and organic grips extended bronze swords to lengths of 60 to 80 centimeters, weapons of reach and authority. Warriors now wielded blades that could strike at a distance, their hilts binding bronze and wood in clever assemblies. These were triumphs of design, but again, the longer the blade, the sharper the flaw. Casting defects lurked unseen, and the hilt junction remained a point of weakness. The dream of the true sword, long, durable, reliable, was constrained by the very nature of bronze. A new material was needed, one that would not shatter when pushed beyond a meter. The answer arrived in iron. Iron entered as a revolution. Smelted in bloomery furnaces, it could not be poured like bronze, but had to be hammered hot at the forge. This new method gave smiths hands-on control, shaping billets into blades longer and tougher than bronze could bear. Wrought iron swords appeared, hammered to form, less brittle and more forgiving. They could bend rather than break, and for the first time the sword seemed to find a material that matched its ambition. Yet, bloomery iron was soft. It dented and bent in combat, and its edge dulled pretty quickly. Impurities abounded, and forge welds often failed. Iron had opened the door to the long sword, but it just couldn't deliver the cutting power warriors demanded. The answer lay in carbon, the hidden essence of steel. By heating iron in carbon-rich environments, smiths learned to harden its surface into steel. They took this further, welding strips of hard and soft metal together in these intricate billets. The result was pattern-welded swords, flexible at the core, with hard edges that could bite and keep biting. They shimmered with rippling lines, equal parts function and artistry. The need for sharpness and resilience had been met with ingenuity. Yet, success remained uneven. Pattern welding was difficult, seams sometimes failed, and blades varied in quality with each forge. The sword had grown strong in its blade, but its hilt still betrayed it. The bond between hand and blade was unreliable, a weak link just waiting to fail. So, attention shifted from the blade's edge to the way it was held. The riveted tang became the next step, forging the blade into a projecting tongue that could be riveted between grip slabs of wood or horn. Now, the blade and handle were more truly one, and the sword was less likely to part company with its wielder in battle. It was a bold improvement, and swords became larger and, more practical. Yet, rivets loosened under stress, and tang shoulders concentrated forces that could snap the blade in two. The riveted tang solved one problem only to reveal another. Warriors demanded a hilt that would not slip, wobble, or fail. The smiths answered with a lock that could not be undone, the peened tang and the pommel. By extending the tang through the grip and peening it over beneath a pommel, smiths bound blade and hilt in unbreakable compression. The pommel itself served double duty, not only securing the assembly but also balancing the sword in the hand. This was a great leap forward. Now the sword could be wielded with greater control, less fatiguing, more secure. So the weapon was becoming both reliable and refined. But still, flaws lingered. Guards could loosen, the precision of fit was crucial, and most critically, the warrior's hand remained exposed. The logic of combat, well, it demanded a new safeguard. Thus the crossguard appeared, a bar set between grip and blade to shield the wielder's hand and aid in thrusting. The crossguard marked the transformation of the sword into a true fencing weapon. No longer merely a cutting tool, it became a means of defense as well, protecting fingers and redirecting strikes. Its presence widened the sword's tactical role. Yet guards, too, had limits. They bent or loosened, and as blades lengthened, the problem of weight and balance returned. Smiths saw the solution in the blade itself. If swords were to grow longer without becoming unwieldy, mass had to be managed. They cut grooves into the steel, forging or grinding channels down the blade's length, fullers designed to lighten without weakening. With fullers, swords grew longer, yet remained agile. A fuller reduced weight while maintaining stiffness, and swords became easier to wield for prolonged fighting. Yet the technique was delicate. Quenching could warp the thin sections. Tools left grooves uneven, and imbalance still lingered. The fuller had lightened the sword but had not perfected its handling. The next refinement was more subtle still, not removing material but shaping it. By thinning blades gradually toward the tip, distal tapering, smiths achieved a new harmony of strength and agility. The tapered sword was quick in the hand, nimble in cut and thrust. It carried its weight near the hilt, tapering toward specialized tips honed for slashing or piercing. Handling became more precise, and swords now embodied balance as much as power. But such refinement demanded great skill. A blade thinned too much would snap, and without consistent steel the method could not always succeed. Distal taper pointed toward a conclusion. The sword's perfection required not only skillful shaping, but steel of higher and more uniform quality. At last, in the mature Iron Age and beyond, that quality arrived. Steelmaking improved, furnaces grew hotter, and smiths gained greater control over carbon and heat treatment. The sword reached its classical form, long, balanced, reliable, with tang, guard, pommel, fuller, and taper integrated into a coherent whole. From spathai to Celtic longswords and later medieval arming swords, the weapon had achieved its identity. Born from hammered copper and evolved through every experiment and failure, the sword had become the consummate weapon of its age, not merely a tool of war, but a distilled expression of material, method, and design. Its limits were now only those of metallurgy itself, and beyond them stretched the story of specialization. Sabers, rapiers, zweihanders, each a branch of the perfected form.